Welcome to the Wrestling Still Cool podcast. My name's Cam. That's Mark.
Hey, y'all doing? Appreciate y'all joining in.
All right, and the socials on Twitter is Wrestling S Cool, and take it away for the rest.
The Instagram is at Wrestling's Still Cool, and Facebook is Wrestling Still Cool, and Instagram, TikTok. We're new to TikTok. It is Wrestling Still Cool 90, and our email is email at wrestlingstillcool@gmail.com. You can say hello, or if you have an idea that you'd like to do for a review or a guest you'd like to see in the show, we have a guest soon, and you can say it, hello or whatnot on the email or our social media platforms.
Right. Now, the one that we're going to talk today, it goes down in infamy a bit. This is Starrcade 1997 from WCW. This took place on December 28th, 1997 from the MCI Center in Washington, D.C. This was a big one because this was a finalization of the big build between NWO Hollywood, or NWO in general, with Hollywood Hogan holding the belt, against Sting. This is right after Sting started representing the Crow and that little dark character that we've come to know and love, and that has somewhat made an appearance in an evolution form recently with AEW.
It was about a little over a year after he started not showing up much. WCW, yeah. But really anticipated a match, man. Really anticipated, especially back then. It was a huge showdown. Especially and the main event was really hyped up, which was, as I remember, it was back in '97. I actually watched this live on pay-per-view. Did you?
No.
Okay. I was at a friend's house watching this around my old neck of the woods, and a lot of fun watching this one.
That's the thing. I actually remember this taking place because I'm pretty sure I started watching it shortly thereafter.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was looking at the makeup of the group, and I know for a fact I came in when Wolfpack was already a thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Just seeing who was on the card and who was there and what they portrayed. I remember being after this.
Okay. Yeah, I remember saying something about that too. Yeah.
Dusty Rhodes, because he wasn't a commentator when I started watching. Actually, I don't even remember if he was on the show at that point. I remember the commentators at the time when I started watching were Bobby the Brain, Tony, and Mike Tenay.
Oh yeah, love Bobby the Brain.
But
he was a great. What's that?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying Bobby the Brain is a great one.
Great commentator, good fit for WCW.
Oh, yeah.
Good dynamic between him and Tony and Mike.
Oh yeah, love that trio.
Yep. Now, this was one of the highest growing pay-per-views for WCW, obviously because of Hogan versus Sting. And if you guys had the Nintendo 64 back in the day, the whole setup between these two is what is the video that plays for WCW versus NWO Revenge.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I remember that video game, man. Woo, I was loving that game. I could not wait for that game to come out back then.
I had it. I had that, and I had World Tour.
World Tour, yep, like World Tour. The Revenge game was a little bit something more I was into, but World Tour is cool too. Absolutely.
So you even know who's on the cover of Revenge, right?
Vaguely.
It's Hollywood Hogan.
Yeah.
Kevin Nash. Goldberg,
yeah, I remember Goldberg being on it.
And Raven.
Okay, yeah, I remember. Yeah, the Raven. Now I was thinking for a second. Yeah, okay.
Do you know? So, I know one of those is not like the others because Raven wasn't in the world title picture.
Yeah,
and I'm like, okay, well maybe it's because they're representing factions. Nope, one of the developers was a Raven fan, so they put him on the cover.
Well, Raven was a big part of the company.
He was a big part, but he's a mid-card guy. When someone brought up the game while he was on the cover, he goes, "Oh, well, funny story. I wasn't supposed to be on the cover. It just so happened one of the developers was a fan of mine and just wanted me on the cover." I mean, whatever works.
Yeah,
I was a
whatever
Raven
works.
fan, so
Yeah, whatever works is good. And I didn't even think about that back then at all. I just saw him on there and thought, okay, we're giving Ravens some good publicity there.
yeah.
Good
Well, I was a
something.
Raven fan, so I just was like, oh, okay, so maybe because he leads the group, but no, that's what it was. He brought it up on his own podcast.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
to get into it, the first match was Eddie Guerrero versus Dean Malenko. Eddie Guerrero was the cruiserweight champion at this match, and you could tell by his strut he's a working man. No, I'm sorry, that was a BG song. He's starting the lie, cheat, and steal character of Eddie Guerrero.
There were definitely things in there that showed that.
Yeah, you can just kind of tell based on his attitude. I actually didn't mind his music either. In
No, it
WCW.
was something different. It was I didn't think a whole lot about it back then, but it was something that it was a good music for his character. You know, I thought it was a good setup for his way he was, his attitude and everything, his persona.
Yeah.
Yeah, very well around his character. Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, this was between for the cruiserweight title. This, like I said, Dean Malenko versus Eddie Guerrero. So, what would you rate that?
I rated a 6.7. I thought it was an entertaining match. It told a pretty good story.
Yep.
And both guys, as always, showed off their great talents and their positioning of the card back then in that time frame. The cruiserweight division was phenomenal, man. That was always the exciting part of WCW back then, and these two guys are a big asset towards that, and that showed this match here. I teeter-tot between 6.5 and 7, so I was like, go 6.7.
I went 7, but it's because I'm a big fan of the cruiserweights, and especially in WCW. I always liked Dean Malenko. I didn't think he was as what would you say? Not as what's the word I'm looking for? He wasn't necessarily a character. He was more of a Bret Hart. He has a little bit of character, but he's more of a technical in the ring guy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So this was a good bout, and ultimately Eddie Guerrero came up on top.
Absolutely, it was a good kickoff to the show. And a lot of times back then, cruiserweight division kicked off the show. Tell you that was a good kickoff. You know,
yeah.
The booking decision for that was good.
Yeah. And the next match ended up being Scott Norton and Vincent, and I can't remember who the original partner was, but it was they subbed Randy Savage in.
Yeah, I didn't hear who the original one was supposed to be.
I can't remember.
I don't remember myself either, honestly.
Let me scroll through my notes real quick. That's what it was. K-Dog. Conan. Conan was the original partner. Okay. And Randy Savage is the one that took over. They faced against Bray Trailer, who was the big boss man, and the Steiner Brothers, which the Steiner Brothers had Ted DiBiase in it.
The $1 Million Man.
So when it comes to Scott, I'm so used to him being Big Papa Pump. Seeing him with dark hair is super odd.
Yeah, I prefer the dark hair, honestly. That's my preference. But I understand he had to change his look for his new character when he turned heel. But it's for me, it's nice to see the Steiner Brothers tag team going on instead of just seeing the Big Papa Pump. But he looked a little different. I thought he looked got a lot more different when he grew out his hair longer.
Yeah, and basically, Scott Steiner definitely showed his abilities here. There was at one point Steiner was going for a Frankensteiner, which give him a lot of credit for creating that move. But Norton grabbed him and put him in what they called it so I made a note of this. They called it the fall away slam. It wasn't a fall away slam, it was electric chair drop.
Yeah.
And Savage hit the elbow drop and pinned.
You know, in that match when Scott Steiner hit the Frankensteiner. I believe that Mike Tenay said something about Rey Mysterio eats or Ray Jr. or what it was. He said, "Eats your heart out" or something. I believe.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I was surprised.
Because Steiner's such a big dude to pull off that move.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I just was surprised that he made that kind of comment towards Ray Jr. Ray Jr. wasn't really his heel, so I was just kind of a little surprised about the way he said it, at least how the words he said it, the way he did it. So
every now and then you would hear Tenay pull off something like that. Like if someone does another move that someone else does, he'll say "blank, eat your heart out" or whatever. Yeah,
I just wasn't. I just don't remember or wasn't expecting him to say that with Ray Jr. That's all. But I understand what you're saying. That's what made Mike Tenay a little bit more special. He would not only be the professor, but also speak up. So yeah. So I gave that match a 6.
Yeah, I gave it a 6 as well. I actually thought a little bit more would happen there and be a little bit more interesting. I expected a little bit more of it because there's the Steiner brothers involved with it, as well as Scott Norton and Randy Savage. With them being superb workers, it wasn't not giving Vince any kind of flack or even Big Boss Man, but it was just I guess I expected a little bit more, and it just didn't meet my expectation for it. It was still a good working match. They definitely worked to develop the story, especially with Miss Elizabeth. But yeah, I expected a little bit more.
Hey, so were you a fan of Scott Norton and Vincent? Not just as a team or anything, but just individuals. Were you a fan of them?
Not really. I never really cared for the Vincent character at all. But Scott Norton, it's one of those where Scott Norton is. I respect him as a worker, especially with watching his older stuff. You kind of see, or not older stuff, but watching the stuff, through a lens, if you will. You definitely see his ability a little bit more. I didn't really dig him when I was a kid, but like, oh, okay, man, he was actually really clean in the ring, kind of thing. What about you?
I was a fan of Vincent. Just something about his. I was a fan of his when he was Virgil in WWF. The parts that I did see even on old film, and even when he came in as Vincent, which I think was more of a knock with Vince McMahon. It's funny because they do the same thing in WWF when he's called Virgil. You know where Virgil came from?
Yeah, it's named after Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah, I figured it did. Just wanted to.
It was one of those where they're trying to make jabs at each other, which I thought was
cool. Absolutely. And I don't know, something about Vincent that was always something decent to me. And Norton, I was a fan of more so when he was not with the NWO before he got into it. But when he's in NWO, he was kind of so cool. But I was a bigger fan when he wasn't. So I just thought I'd touch base, see what you thought about them.
The tag team that he was in that's better was definitely with Buff Bagwell.
Yeah, definitely by far. I was enjoying those two guys that made a good impact, good abilities.
Now the next match. Two former football players, Goldberg versus Steve Mongo. I'm gonna botch everything, McMichael.
Oh yeah, it was just. It was what they call it was fugly. Is that the best way?
Yeah, it was definitely that.
Or it's that's the best way to say.
They kept talking
with all due respect. Yeah.
They kept talking about how Goldberg and McMichael were both football players and their heritage there. But we see him in the ring. Not saying Goldberg was a great seller or a great wrestler in general, but oh boy, he is leagues ahead of Steve McMichael.
Say it again.
He was leagues ahead of Steve McMichael, Mongo McMichael.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was just man, it was just bad enough. So I gave it.
And Goldberg even looked more of a threat than Mike McMichael.
Yeah, by far, man. It was just Mongo had good mic, and his character was okay. I had no problem, but the in ring was just this whole match just Yeah, it just didn't settle for me. There's no story to tell. There's no a lot of